Baby, I guess you've heard my sigh. It seems I've traded love for glory. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Mark DiCarlo. Tonight my guest is Miss Susan Reeves, who is Executive Secretary for the Democrats. Is that right?
Yes,
Democratic
sir.
Party in Oasis County?
Yes, sir.
Thank you for coming on at the last minute. I hope we're prepared enough to do a show. We were talking briefly before the show about Coastal Bend shares odd bond with Big Apple, which is an article in the Corpus Christi Caller Times. They
Yes,
should
sir.
appreciate that free plug. But what was that article about that we were discussing?
It's about the likelihood of hurricanes hitting Corpus Christi, and strangely enough, the article said once every 19 years, historically, they've looked back, a hurricane hits Corpus Christi, which puts us on a par with New York City and Delaware. Yet, we pay some of the highest windstorm insurance rates around.
Well, it seems to me that the little bit I've watched the national media, whenever we have a hurricane coming in this general direction, they make a big deal that it's going to hit Corpus Christi. I don't know if that's because we're one of the bigger cities that's close to the coast, or because of the name, and because of the heavy population, it's more exciting. But the media seems to fall into that indicator that we have all these hurricanes or might have these hurricanes.
Right. Well, and I think part of it is when you look at the coast here, there's not a lot on the coastline between Brownsville and Corpus Christi. So I think the media looks as where are cities along the Texas coast. Well, there's Brownsville, there's Corpus Christi, there's Galveston, right. And I think they put everything in their minds near what they would consider a major city
right.
along the coast.
And then we have the downtown, I guess, on the bayfront, which
right.
is a good historic, kind of picture.
Mm-hmm.
So the basically indicate, and then perhaps because we did have a major hurricane or two, when was it, 1911? We had the large hurricane that killed some people, so maybe they're looking at 19.
Yeah, the last hurricane that we had that did a lot of damage, of course, was Celia, and that's the last just direct hit that we got.
Okay. So, even though we don't have a lot of hurricanes in Corpus Christi, Texas, we pay very high, what kind of insurance? Windstorm insurance?
Windstorm insurance. Mm-hmm.
And what is the reason that you believe that we pay high windstorm insurance?
Simply because of our location, because we sit on the Texas Gulf Coast. They, and my understanding, and I haven't studied a lot about it, is there are 14 counties that they consider at a high risk for hurricane damage. However, these 14 counties are not created, or are not equal in the number of times that there has been damage there. And Oasis County is one of those counties that just does not see a lot of hurricane damage. There's many, many years between major storms. As a matter of fact, I've lived here since 1979, and we've had a couple of scares right after I moved here. Hurricane Allen, and
I think I was in Houston. I think I was in Houston. It seems like Houston has gotten from the time I lived in Houston and the time a friend of mine was in MD Anderson. I went to Houston a couple years ago. It seems Houston has gotten hit harder.
Yes.
In my since I've been to Texas since 1980.
Yes.
Because I saw it. I saw the signs destroyed in Houston. Mm-hmm. I was there during large power outages in Houston right. When I was in law school in the early 80s.
Right.
It seems like Houston, even though it's further inland, has gotten hit harder.
Yes. And I don't think that Harris County pays the rates that people right on the coastline do.
So is this because, so the insurance industry, what do you think? You think they're overcharging us? Why are they able to charge so high? Is this something that is regulated by the state? Because people like me, who unfortunately have to work so many hours, you can't keep up with all this stuff.
Yes. Well, the problem with it is, although hurricanes don't hit anywhere near with the frequency of the tornadoes and hailstorms that are much more common inland, when a hurricane of any magnitude strikes, a major hurricane, the damage is massive because it's every home, it's every business. No one is spared. And with the smaller storms, they could be very expensive and houses can be destroyed, but you don't see, you know, half the homes and businesses in the city that have sustained major damages. And the insurance companies do take a major hit when this happens. However, I believe they're punishing residents that are kind of further inland and don't see the damage that we get on the barrier islands.
So what are you saying? Are you implying that, like on our barrier island, that the people in the city of Corpus Christi are paying higher premiums because we have the accompanying barrier island here, that we're in the same pool? Are we? Do you know?
My understanding is that those 14 counties, they're just all in the same pool, and we're judged as the same risk, even though you have some people in Nueces County who are living, well, if you have a home in the Calallen area and a home that's on a canal in Padre Island and a hurricane comes in, you're going to expect there's going to be more wind damage and wind-driven storm surge on that property on the island than you would in Calallen, yet they're both in the same county. And there's been some questions about, should we, within a county, have different windstorm rates based upon where that home or business is located. Now, Todd Hunter says he's against it. So
he's against that?
Yes, territorial. He says he doesn't like that territorial idea.
Well, I do know, like this building here, which is, what, 2 blocks from Ocean Drive.
Yes, sir.
I don't know that the premium's any higher, but what they do is they don't want to sell you, companies just won't rate the insurance.
Right.
Instead of selling it at a higher rate. So I guess that's what's playing in what you're saying.
Yes.
They cannot sell it, but they can't charge a higher rate as you get closer to the water.
Right. That's, well, you're in that same risk pool. And I've hit problems with my regular homeowner's insurance because I happen to live very near, well, Texas A&M Corpus Christi. And once you get very close to the bay and the Oso that cuts through there, the Cayo de Oso, they begin to say, look, you're pretty close to a tidal body of salt water, even though it's just a marsh that I'm kind of close to. But
okay, so what is the purpose of this article? The insurance companies are running the show. We can't do anything about it. Is this just to open up? This is to open up now. The insurance companies are playing that they could see losses of $1,383 per $1,000 of coverage. Of course, that's their statistics.
right.
Why are we talking about it? What could we do? Could we do anything, or is there a problem other than? Is there an answer to the problem? Because that is, I would think that keeps the growth in Corpus Christi down to a certain extent. I mean, you could between our taxes and insurance. I've said before, I said, you give somebody a house here, they can't afford it anyway.
Right. Well, and I think that's not necessarily true, because there's losses in Houston and in the Houston area, and it's I guess still the largest city in the state. People are certainly building there. There's certainly businesses there, and yet they face losses, and I think more losses than we have here recently. It's unfortunately the way the laws are in Texas. The insurance industry has some, and they pay for it. They have some very friendly representatives and senators.
Is Mr. Hunter on Wednesday blew up any notion that he is interested in a territorial rating scenario?
Right.
Okay. If territorial rating sounds like a disease, said Mr. Hunter, it is. He said it's a divide and conquer the coastline, and it is not helpful. And this is what you were referring to earlier, wherein the people in Calallen are being done a disservice by paying the same rate as people living in Del Mar, etc.
Yes. Or people living, particularly on Padre Island, which happens to be Representative Hunter's district.
So Representative Todd Hunter's district is on Padre Island.
Right.
And therefore, he would not want, you're implying that he's representing those people and that he doesn't want them paying the much higher insurance rates than the people in Cal might.
Right. And right now for the windstorm, that's what it is. It's just.
But you're a Democrat, and in a way, Democrats believe in this kind of socialistic, let's all spread the losses, and that's the other side of it.
Right.
To the whole community,
Although I am also a firm believer that you need to look at everything before you're going to invest. For most of us working people, our home is the biggest investment that we're ever going to make, and you need to be careful about it. And I'm sure, when people buy a home, you check out the neighborhood, you check out the school districts, you want to know what's the crime rate. Okay. I have chosen to live close to the bay, and we knew that was kind of a risk. But I chose to live there, and I understand if my windstorm rates are high, I would not choose. I think the risk is too great to live on the island.
And if Mr. Hunter, by the way, wants to come on the show to rebut anything,
absolutely,
he's more than welcome to do that. So the Democratic convention just ended.
Yes, sir.
So the Democratic convention just ended. I don't really know the purpose. We knew Obama. Obama didn't have really any really organized opposition, did he?
No.
By the Democrats within the Democratic Party, right?
No.
And everything was going to be the same, right? We got Biden as the vice president. We got President Obama as the president, etc. Did you hear his speech? Did you like his acceptance speech? What'd you think?
I did. I heard parts of it, and I think he's right. We've come back a long way from the collapse in the economy, but we're not there yet. We're not there yet.
Do you think that that either he has enunciated an intelligent, cogent platform on how to solve these problems? Do you think Romney and his vice president have enunciated a clear, cogent platform to solve our problems? And I'm saying that question, obviously, I'm implying that I don't think either one of them has. Mm-hmm. What do you think?
I don't think either of the candidates has really said this is what is going to work in a way that I myself would like. However, consider myself extremely liberal, and I think we really need to be working.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I think we need to be working and giving stimulus funds to those companies to create jobs here in the
but that wasn't said.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't anything as simple as saying, well, look, we want to get manufacturing back to the United States.
Right.
Therefore, we're going to give tax incentives to companies that come back to the United States. Nothing that simple is ever stated in any of these in either one of these primaries or
I did not hear it. Yeah.
So to me, and I'm going to do more probably talking than I should on this show simply because I'm not as well prepared maybe as I should have been. But I listened to these speeches, and as far as I could say, they were all self-glorification of the people giving the speech. My husband and I did this, or oh, my grandfather was so poor, or well, look, what do I care? Mm-hmm. What do I care? Is this some sort of gossip that I care about where you've been? Or, I mean, I'm a lawyer, obviously. Mm-hmm. I wanted to hear some facts and statistics.
Right.
What is the unemployment rate now? Why is it this high? Who's unemployed? And how could we get it back down?
Right.
I must admit, I didn't watch the primaries, but cursorily, I mean, not the primaries, but the, obviously when they elected the both Mr. Obama and his opponent Romney. I didn't hear anything really. Did you hear much in the way of specifics from either? I really didn't.
No, but that's not the purpose of the national conventions. The national conventions are on television. It's the business of the conventions goes on not in front of the cameras. Conventions used to be very suspenseful. You did not know who was going to be the president.
It's all set up now.
Yes, this is a 3-day marketing of the candidates, and it's on both sides.
And you've been to the convention. Have you been to the convention?
No, I've not been to a national convention.
Oh, you've not been to a national
convention? No,
convention?
I'm a working class Democrat. I can't afford to go to a national convention. I've been to state conventions, many state conventions, and but on the national level, at this point in time, it's also predetermined that it is. You're just rolling out your.
I wondered. I was telling someone, and I don't know. I know CNN and maybe Fox News covered these conventions, but I had to wonder. I said, should they be giving the Democratic convention in particular, because we know for certain who the candidacy in, and I guess we're 95% in the Republican. Should they even have these on? Yeah. What is the newsworthy value, as you're saying, of this big PR piece?
Right. And we used to see when I was a kid. Oh boy, I'm dating myself. You used to see gavel to gavel convention coverage because there were things that were up in the air. There were things that were in doubt. You weren't sure who the vice presidential candidate might be.
Well, I remember, the contested elections. For example, was that '68 wherein McGovern was fought by the main line of the party and who was actually going to get it. But I can't remember the last time there was actually a contested.
Right. Well, it got so contentious.
Convention, is that right?
Yeah, it got so very contentious in '68 and in '72 that soon after that we went to a lot of presidential primaries to where the decision was made by the voters.
I see. And you think that's a fairer method?
Excuse me. Yes, I do. Even
though then you're faced with almost like two, whatever. Now you got 3 elections that you they cover, etc.
Right. The problem is that it prices some people that would really be good presidential candidates. It becomes the perpetual campaign. You've got to be campaigning 2 years before the primary and raising money because it is so expensive to run multiple state primaries.
In the city of Corpus Christi, we have some mayoral candidates: Nelda Martinez, Chris N. Adler, Josie Wales.
The outlaw Josie Wales.
And Ray Madrigal. So yes. I'm assuming that the mainline candidates are Nelda Martinez and Chris N. Adler. Is that right?
Yes.
And even though I don't believe in ever counting people out because that's a way of controlling the election results, saying, oh, they don't stand a chance or whatever, let's assume that Nelda Martinez and Chris Adler, for the sake of discussion, are the mainline candidates. Is Nelda Martinez a Republican or a Democrat? Do you know?
Yes.
You know she's a Republican or a Democrat?
Yes, she votes in the Democratic primary.
She's a Democrat. And how about Chris N. Adler?
Chris Adler, I don't know. I've not particularly looked at her voting record.
And Nelda Martinez has something in common with many of the people that run locally. They're either usually in the title insurance business,
yes,
or they're maybe associated with the oil, the refineries,
right,
etc. Right? And I think she's in the title business,
title business, yes.
And Chris N. Adler, what is she in? What kind of business is she going to be?
I don't know. Is her husband a business owner? With this being now you've got me flat-footed with the nonpartisan campaign.
Well, we don't know that.
I don't look as closely.
Oh, I know, and I'm this is part reality show. You don't know the questions.
Yeah.
So we don't recall offhand. And Nelda Martinez has been on the city council for many years.
Yes.
And I believe she's at large. Is that right? Or she?
She was city. Yes, she was at large and now running for mayor.
So do you know if Nelda? I'm sorry, did I interrupt you?
No.
So Nelda Martinez, has she put forth anything that was good for the city? Anything specific that work, that either, help the budget, help the streets, something, again, intelligent and cogent that we know worked? Do you know of anything? Does she have any pet projects? Do you know?
I know that when it comes to issues that the Democratic Party looks at environmentally, she's been a little more friendly to the Clean Economy Coalition and some of the green stuff.
Okay.
She was one of the few people, and I do have a lot of respect for her for that. When Las Brisas first came in and they gave their presentation to the city council, Nelda voted in favor of Las Brisas. And then when I believe it was Dr. Silverman, the cardiologist, the doctors got together and said, wait a minute, do you understand how damaging the pollution from a coke, that coke burning plant would cause, how many cases of heart disease and respiratory disease in children and adults? And they did a very good presentation on it.
She changed her
After she
position.
looked at it, she changed her vote.
So you admired, you thought, you thought she had some courage of conviction at that point, and then
Yes.
she could listen in an open-minded, open-hearted manner and change her
Yes.
position. You thought that was a good sign for hers. All right, and then I don't know much. I've heard Chris Adler's name for years. I don't know. Does she have a political position now?
She's currently on the city council,
Oh, is
isn't she?
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you know if do you know of her being known for any particular stand or position that you agree with or disagree with?
No, I just don't follow the city as
don't?
much as that. She has never impressed me as someone who stood out on any issue. I'm not
Right,
sure.
and I know, me either. I don't recall, and I think that's kind of a bad sign.
Excuse me.
One thing that I never quite understood, and this isn't on point, it's something you don't know, but I had on the longtime city councilman Bill Kelly on the show a couple times.
Yes,
Bill Kelly.
I
And
know
Bill,
Mr. Kelly.
I never quite understood what they were doing on city council because I never heard any of them come forth with any propositions on their own. It's like, I guess I don't understand the government that well here. I said, well, where's your you're for this, you're for that. Where's your proposition to put this forth? And was it being? It doesn't seem like they ever do that.
Yeah.
So I don't know how they're going to get anything done if people just come before them with this, and then you vote on it. Well, I don't get it really.
And part of that is that whole council manager form of government.
It's very strange, isn't it?
Yeah. And I think sometimes it causes the city council to be reactive rather than proactive.
That's all I see. That they react to what's put before them in these studies or whatever they're given, and it's run behind the scenes, basically. So for the City of Corpus Christi general election, candidate list is Lillian Rojas, David Loeb, Mark Scott, John A. Sandahar, John Garcia, Alicia Benavides. And I think Lillian Rojas has never held political office before.
No, I don't think so.
And I believe she works for Valero.
Yes, sir.
And I don't know if she's a Republican or a Democrat. Do you?
I do not. I've not researched any of these candidates.
David Loeb is, I believe he's on city council now, correct?
Yes, sir.
And I think he identifies with the Republicans. Is that right?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
I mean, I know that he has supported some Democrats in the past. He may well be voting. He may be truly independent.
And Mark Scott is a long-time person involved. As a matter of fact, I don't quite understand how he's back, how he hasn't termed out.
Well, he has termed out.
And then he came
turned
back.
out and come back. And yes.
And is Mr. Scott's presently at large? Do you know?
Yes, I believe he is.
Okay. He's been on. He was nice. He will come on.
Yes.
Like he came on this show without a minute's hesitation, which is great. He's not suspicious in that regards. He's pretty good at answering questions.
Yes.
He's quite the politician.
Yes.
We have some local people, I'm going to give them credit as politicians. Not meaning to put them down, but in my observation, Lloyd Neal comes on, he's a very good politician.
Yes.
Mark Scott comes on, very good politician.
Yeah,
I mean, they got it down,
Yeah, I invited them all. I'm president of the Texas Democratic Women here locally, and I invited all of the at-large city council candidates just to come and speak to us. We don't endorse in the nonpartisan races, but Mr. Scott was there and very well spoken and
and I'm a lawyer and I do this talk show, but I mean some of these politicians, they have a way of answering questions that is rather skilled.
Right.
And not answering. Have you found that to be the case?
In many cases. Yes.
And they sound very reasonable, but okay, so John A. Sandahar is running. Sandahar, I don't know him. Do you?
He ran in the Democratic primary for tax assessor collector. He is with the city in IT. He's an interesting background with Mr. Sandahar because he was a firefighter and then was, due to an injury, disabled and went to work for the city and ended up going into IT. He served...
What is IT?
The computer guys. You see, I'm so unsavvy. Yeah, information technology.
Okay,
and so he was working with the computer systems there. And he did a term... on the county appraisal board. He was a board member. So he comes with a very different background from what you normally see city council. You're
implying that's a good thing?
It could be. I mean, I'm not... I just found it intriguing because, 90% of the time when you have candidates come in, and like you say, it's real estate, it's the refineries, it's the title companies, and almost everybody on the city council has some connection, either with some form of the real estate. Yes, with the real estate industry or
that's not a good thing.
Refinery. I would like to see more viewpoints because I think
though there was a time on city council we had like 3 or 4 lawyers. We had Brett Chesney, but he was affiliated with a title company.
Right.
We had Bill Kelly, who wasn't. We had Melody Cooper, who wasn't. There was that time period not too long ago where a lot of them were lawyers. I don't know. Maybe. I mean, I don't know that. You could argue that they do it for the publicity because some of them were in solo practice, and maybe you get your name out there for free. I don't know.
Right. I don't know. I just. The reason I like people that come from more different backgrounds is I look back when the late Mary Rhodes was mayor.
Yes.
And she really, I believe, thought out of the box. We went through a drought, and that's the last time I could think of that somebody did something very proactively, which could have been from. Had that Texada pipeline failed or gone bankrupt or something bad happened to that, well, of course, her political career was over.
And she was a nurse. She had a nursing background.
Yes.
Somewhat different. How about John Garcia? Do you know John Garcia?
Yes. Well, I just met him the one time. I believe he works in the hotel management.
Okay, so that's a little bit different.
It is. It's a little different. Again, the tourist side of it.
And do you know Alicia G. Benavides?
Yes,
she's also running for at-large, City of Corpus Christi?
Yes, she's a retired government employee, and I don't know at what level. But
have any of these people said anything regarding a platform, anything specific that they want to do, or are they all just pretty much mired in generalities? I want to bring jobs into Corpus Christi, the same old empty rhetoric that we hear from politicians. Do you know? Does anyone have a good platform that you know of?
Well, in 2 minutes, I've not heard it. I mean, it's one of those things that it's hard to distill what you want to do. And again, because I work in politics, campaigning is so similar to marketing. Except you're just marketing a candidate and you're marketing ideas.
Well, it's even in small businesses like that. you know, and one of the problems, and even in owning a small law office, is how far do you market yourself personally?
Right.
If I had a furniture store, I could market it with a certain image, etc., and I could simplify it.
Right.
But speaking as a person, you know, some of the lawyers are very good at putting themselves out there, marketing themselves with their name.
Right.
And then I've thought of that. I could do that too. Mm-hmm. But you know, then you say, well, where are the ethics? Am I a person or am I a product?
Right.
Do I want to sell people the simplifications of my life or name? Mm-hmm. Or again, the glorification, or right. You know, so I guess that's one of the problems in politics now. Is you're saying you basically have to put yourself to the lowest common denominator, whatever your profile picture with a couple of words.
Yeah.
And this has been going on for years. There was a Selling a President in 1968 with
right.
Richard Nixon. That was a famous book, you know. And now we know the Kennedy campaign was such a blatant Hollywood sell. President Kennedy's campaign mm-hmm. in '60 through his father and the connection with the movie industry. I'm not certain that wasn't really the first one.
Right. Yeah, it's always with the rise of television, you know, the visual media, I think the marketing got even
mass media, of course.
More targeted. I think on the radio you couldn't see people, and that's what someone had said, that Franklin Roosevelt might possibly never have been elected if people realized that he was in a wheelchair.
Right.
Right. Although it has not hurt Greg Abbott. But, you know, the Attorney General of the state of Texas is paraplegic. And
I was unaware of that.
Right, but you never see him.
You know, not meaning to act like I'm an expert on politics or anything, mm-hmm. but there was a statue, I believe it was of Julius Caesar, and I think there was a dog around his feet that was supposedly made him look like a, you know, compassionate young person, and then the same statue was put throughout the Roman Empire, mm-hmm. and it was supposedly very antithetical in its portrayal of him as antithetical to the way he actually governed, etc. And that same statue was put throughout the empire, the Roman Empire. So it makes you wonder if they didn't have this all down many years ago. It was a much cruder form.
Yes. Yes.
You know, and now it's much more sophisticated. We have computer databases. We have to figure out demographics, areas, you know, religions,
focus groups.
Focus groups.
Mm-hmm.
Do you ever participate in what's a focus group?
A focus group is where you bring in your man or woman off the street and you talk to them about issues that are important to them. Do you think this is important? And it's was used oftentimes for marketing. I think the only focus group I ever participated in was one where an auto manufacturer was thinking about building in a baby car seat in a car.
So you're saying that politicians using the same methods of focus groups that they use to market products.
Yes.
Okay, and in the general election, it says candidate list for District 1 is Kelly Allen. Do you know Kelly Allen?
District 1, is that statewide?
No. City of Corpus Christi general election candidate.
Oh, Kelly Allen. No, I don't. He was the one that was appointed by the city council when Kevin Kieschnick got the tax assessor collector job, and nobody ran against him. Okay. So I know very little about him except that the city council put him in.
And City of Corpus Christi general election, November 6, 2012 candidate list. We have Chad McGill versus Brian. I don't know. Rosas or it looks like it should be Rojas, but it's
Rosas.
Yes. Do you know the other one of them?
I know several of Brian Rosas's family members, and I believe he works at CCAD. So he's
and that would imply that he has more like a blue collar like position at CCAD.
Yes.
Versus Chad McGill. Is that McGill Furniture or something?
I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah. Although, as I say, somebody had asked me once, is Chad McGill a Democrat? And I did look that up and said he voted in the Democratic primary. Now, I know that Brian Rosas has told me, yes, I'm a Democrat. I know his father and his uncle, and they're retired steel workers, I think, from the Reynolds plant.
And in City of Corpus Christi, November 6th, candidate list for District 3 is Priscilla Leal
yes.
versus Jesse Noyola.
Yes, sir.
I've asked Priscilla, well, I personally have liked the way Priscilla Leal votes. I don't know, from a little bit I followed it. She seems to be, I mean, I don't know that she has a lot of formal education or whatever, but she seems to be a populist of some note.
She's one of the people who just genuinely, a little person, that just got on the city council because she was concerned about District 3. And she thought it was being overlooked. And I think she's one of the few people that is kind of what you see is what you get. She's not a very polished person. She does her homework. But her entire focus, as sometimes it should be in those single-member districts, she looks out for her district.
Her constituents. And what do we know about Joyce? Is Jesse Noel is one of the Noel brothers? Is
Yes,
that right?
yes, sir. Works at Southwest Airlines.
Yes, I know him. He was on city council for years, right?
Yes, yes. And then was, as a matter of fact, he was in District 3 I think he was representing District 3.
District 3, he's a District 3 candidate now.
And then he lost, it may have been Miss Leal that beat him. He lost that District 3 election, and then he ran 18 months ago at large. Kind of at the last minute he got into it, and he did well.
That at-large position, there's a lot of money poured into that campaign, right?
Well, more so than the other ones. Now, the city council, in the grand scheme of politics, there's not near the money that goes into the nonpartisan races as there are with the state rep and state senate and U.S. Congress races.
Yeah, and then we have a Colleen McIntyre, this is District 4. Which District 4? Where's that at?
That covers along Ocean Drive into Flower Bluff and Padre Island. I live in District 4.
Is this building in District 4, do you think?
No, I think it would be maybe in 1.
Okay. And so then this is Spahn Hospital Shoreline area.
Right.
I
think it's in 1.
Colleen McIntyre, Janoa Andrasik, and Michael McCauley withdrew, and Webster Pell. Do you know any of those candidates?
Not well. If I'm not mistaken, maybe Webster Pell has run before for something, but the name sounds familiar. I know that Colleen McIntyre works with the optometrists that she's involved with, or married to Dr. McIntyre. I think she's the office manager there, and I'm really not sure about the other.
Rudy Garza Jr. and John Valls in let me see here, general election. What is that? District 5.
District 5.
Do you know either one of those candidates?
No, I don't, and I really
is that Rudy Garza the attorney? I wonder. I don't know.
I don't think so, but
okay. So then we're coming up with let's see, we have an interesting election. Rose Mesa Harrison is going to be running as U.S. representative against Mr. Blake Farenthold, correct?
Yes, sir.
Rose Mesa Harrison kind of ran a negative campaign, arguably, against somebody who was running against her, was it Jerry Trevino?
Trevino, yes.
Trevino, alleging that he had been either arrested for a DWI or 2. Is that right?
Yes, that was, it ran in I think that campaign was mostly on in social media. I don't know if they
social media meaning a lot of people, that's like Facebook and
right
stuff.
Right. Yes, I'm not familiar with social media.
I received an email, I think maybe it was through Facebook or something, but and then what did you think about her coming forth and stating that about her opponent, Mr. Trevino? Did you think that was fair game? Did you think it was unethical against another Democrat? Did you think, what did you think?
I, on a completely personal level, am opposed to negative campaigning in a primary. I tell the candidates, whenever they run in a primary, I don't like negative campaigns when it's Democrat against Democrat. I
will say that I thought I would have if I would have been Mr. Trevino, I probably would have come out with something negative against her.
Yes.
I wouldn't have just sat there. Now, I'm not saying that
there were negative mailers that went out right before there that he accused. There was a negative direct mail piece that went out right before the early vote from Mr. Trevino's campaign, and
before she made the allegation that he was arrested and or convicted of a DWI. Do you remember? These things snowball. This is why I hate negative campaigning. First, he came out and Mr. Trevino had said, Ms. Harrison is raising money from out of state. She's taking money in her congressional race from out of state organizations. But you know, I don't know that I agree that that's a negative campaign, because that is factual and that is not personal and that is relevant. I don't know that I agree that that's negative.
Yeah, I mean,
now, I guess you can go so far that you say you're corrupt because you're going to do what is in these people's pockets that are filtering money to you. Well, maybe
that was kind of
that's the line.
The lean on that.
But it might be true.
Well, according to the Harrison campaign, this was negative, and they came back with the arrest, and then there was another. There were several things that went on, and it got, in my opinion, I was not happy with either side by the time it was finished.
Okay. Well, the only thing I can say, in my personal opinion, is that Democrats have been very, very bad at negative campaign. As I've said, I think, on this public access show before, I sat there and watched Senator Kerry sit there and just watch him be insulted, who started off with a fairly substantial lead and just sat there and let somebody insult him.
Right.
And it was so ridiculous because he actually was a veteran and didn't have a DWI like Mr. Bush, and was a veteran and sat there and let himself be degraded and insulted and didn't do any campaigning back. Well, it's a wonder that he didn't lose greater.
Right.
By such what would you say, ineffective, such an ineffective, impotent campaign wherein he didn't even have enough courage or fortitude to even respond, let alone attack back.
Right.
And I saw it under Dukakis, and I saw it under Gore, and I saw it under Kerry. Well, what kind of a the Republicans have mastered the negative campaigns, at least at the presidential level, if not at the other level.
At every level. At every level, they seem to have mastered the negative campaign. And people will tell you that they hate negative campaigning, but it works. There's a certain subset.
I think it works very well. But I would say let's party. If I'd have been Kerry, I'd have been, look, you alcoholic draft dodger.
Right.
You got a lot of nerve saying, calling me, saying that my service, whatever, it was less than exemplary. I mean, like you say, once you start it, all cards on the table.
Right.
It's similar to if a jury trial gets too dirty.
Yeah.
The old saying is turnabout is fair play.
Right.
If somebody's not following the rules, you're going to lose if you're the only one following them, right?
Right. And I think that's what has happened now. It used to be that people would say, well, this allegation is so outrageous that I'm not even going to dignify it by responding. And there was that old, where we used to think, they wanted to act presidential,
Yeah.
and
Well, that's
we found now. And
well, yeah, that doesn't work. Well, and one good thing I could well, President Obama, I'm kind of glad. I'm kind of glad. You know, they've got these birther that he wasn't born in the United States. I'm kind of glad that he has come out aggressively and said, well, look at your record at Bain Capital. I'm not even certain that is negative campaigning.
Right.
If somebody is saying, I'm a businessman, and then they don't want their record at, Bain Capital revealed.
Right.
Or, I think, and some of that other stuff, I don't even know, is it negative campaigning to say a president of the United States, especially if he's running on a platform, what is it, America for Americans or something? What is that? If you run on that platform and then you got your money overseas, I say, hey, well,
yeah, in the Cayman Islands.
Okay,
yeah.
all right.
Of course, he's dropped the America for Americans.
Has he?
Yes, he has.
Because it was identified with racism. It was identified with the KKK.
Yes.
And the Know Nothing Party.
Yes.
Who used it as a campaign against Jews and Catholics, right?
Yes.
So he dropped that.
Yes.
So that's. We were talking about we were talking about negative campaigning generally. Then we were talking, of course, about Rose Mesa Harrison and Mr. Farenthold. I would say when Mr. Farenthold had run against, who was he running against last time?
Congressman Ortiz.
Solomon
Ortiz.
I don't think he really did much in the way of negative campaigning. I don't think so. I don't recall any. I do know that Ortiz's campaign did what you could. I would say it was kind of negative campaigning, showing Blake Farenthold in the ducky pajamas with the dancer, whatever,
actually
provocatively dressed. That was
that showed up the first time in We the People.
Yes,
and it got the local newspaper. Are they still printing, or have they gone all on?
No. We the People is no longer a publication.
Yeah, but at that time they put out those pictures, and it got picked up nationally.
Yeah, but there were billboards too that were run by. I assume it had to be the his opponent, Ortiz. But I don't think Blake Farenthold really engaged in that I recall, in any respect, manner, or form.
I am not sure.
So how has he been doing? Blake Farenthold's our congressman, right?
Yes, sir.
Has there anything of any note that you followed regarding the way he's voted on anything, whether it's windstorm insurance or his discussion of it, or anything that you think, well, man, this guy's done a great job, or what have you followed about Mr. Farenthold?
Congressman Farenthold, of course, windstorm insurance is a state issue, so there's not a lot, that's regulated by the state, so he would not have anything with him. I was rather distressed that when I get information from him, he had signed on to the same bill that Paul Ryan was backing to declare a fertilized egg as a human being, which I think there were some other more pressing issues when it came to.
Are they really going any? I mean, I'm what I guess they term this ambiguous term pro-life, but when they go with these little political issues, I'm wondering if they're genuine or disingenuous or just trying to get votes, or how far they're, I don't really know.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think that nobody is pro-abortion, and I think you can be pro-life without being anti-woman.
Well, why would that be? Okay, why is that? Why do you think that? What you just said regarding them trying to make a national law, I guess, that a fertilized egg is a human. Why is that important? Why are you saying that?
then you get to the point where close to 1 in 3 pregnancies, there's either a miscarriage or something. Many times women don't even know it. But what you've done is that you're kind of making a woman a prisoner. You know, you're not supposed to drink. You're not supposed to smoke.
Right. So you could be criminalizing. You could be criminalizing behavior by a woman who is pregnant, in almost a very intrusive way. Well, that's
they might not know it. When you say we're not going to make any exceptions for rape or incest.
You know, I'm going to say something about that rape thing. You know that senator that said about rape?
Yes.
I got to tell you, they used to publish that, and it still might be, in the Merck manual, which is the baby's, I guess you would say, the Bible of general medical care, that a woman who is raped has like half of 1% or a very low percentage chance of getting pregnant. So they used to, now I don't know what the actual facts are, but I've read it myself.
Yes.
That is a statistical truth. Now whether that was a lie, whether or not there were studies, but they kind of vilified him. That was one of these stories with legs. They make a big deal about it, that he says, oh, this. But I could tell you, nobody ever got in and discussed the medical case. Is that true or not true? You know how these stories, they make, they're very minute, and then they blow them up to maybe somebody's detriment or something. I didn't think that was a legitimate, the way it was covered, I didn't think it was legitimately covered.
Well,
he was vilified for a statement that might be true, that I have read might be true.
Well, as what really infuriated me about the statement, if it's legitimate rape, define legitimate. For those of us who have been victims of sexual violence or rape, what makes that legitimate? Do you have to be beat up? Do you have to be injured?
Well, that's.
Do you have to not know your attacker?
I didn't catch
that. There was there was the term when you said legitimate. He said, well, in cases of legitimate rape, people don't get pregnant, and that is. Are we as women lying? And to me,
right. That's those nuances on it.
Yeah, I feel like there is, and we talk about it, a war on women at the state level, where they want to cut out Planned Parenthood, and no, we're not going to take the money for women's health care. At the national level, well, if there's, abortion should be illegal even in cases of rape and incest and ectopic pregnancy, which of course is not ever going to, the chances of that.
Well, I'm going to say something because I just went through this, and I have two friends that went through it. I think they're taking the cheap shot at being pro-life at the abortion level, because what I have seen is a nationwide scandal is the basic euthanasia of the aged, with the implication of the medical profession, with the implication of the nursing homes, with the cover-up of these people who ever do the autopsies. This is a national scandal that is not talked about. Now, whether or not the Republicans don't discuss it because the medical establishment is in their court, and the medical establishment, a doctor can't do any wrong, and that is one of their special interest groups. And we know the Democrats have special interest groups that they represent, and the Republicans, it would seem like the pharmaceutical, the medical establishment, etc., is making them up. But that national scandal, which I have personal anecdotal experience with, two friends of mine just went through it with one a parent, one's a grandparents, of them starving people to death and depriving them of food and water at the end of their pay, because they get them to sign some sort of a medical power of attorney, or because some relative has some sort of power of attorney. I mean, this is a huge scandal, but I don't hear the Republicans talking about that one.
Right.
Maybe they don't get any votes. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, for me, I feel like there's so much compassion for what they call the preborn children, and the second that they breathe, the second but that's the only compassion. You know, the second that we have living, breathing. You're right. There's no compassion.
Right. That's right. If you're only compassionate towards the unborn, but you're not compassionate towards the child that he doesn't have parents, God forbid, you know, right? Or the child that's abused by their parents, or if you don't have any compassion, right?
If they're food insecure, if they're hungry, I mean, you've got children living in terrible poverty. You've got seniors living in poverty, and
that's the other side of it.
And you look at these seniors, and I've been through it with both of my parents. You know, my husband's father passed away very recently, and his mother is in a nursing home. Fortunately, she's not dependent upon Medicaid, but when 2 out of 3 seniors in a nursing home are dependent upon Medicaid, and our governor says, no, we're not going to take it because I don't like Obamacare, what are we going to do with, they're dependent upon this to stay in the nursing homes.
Well, I can't believe that. That's just ridiculous. I mean, that they're talking about getting rid of Medicare. These old people are
Medicaid. Yes,
I mean, they're old people. They're sitting there. They relied on this, and they thought they were going to get it.
They're there now, and what are their children going to do? And you know, in the cruelest twist of all, part of the Ryan plan says, and guess what? After we take away the Medicaid, and your parents die, we're going to hold their heirs responsible for the bill.
Well, and you know what got me about this guy? He was part of the about Ryan. He received Social Security money until he was whatever 21, 22 because his father died young.
Yes.
And when I was in college, the only people that I knew that had cars were the people whose fathers had passed away or had retired because they were elderly. So they got this Social Security money. So they all had cars.
Yeah.
Now they ended that, according to what I read by a friend of mine, they ended that in the Reagan administration. But this guy got all this money to go to college from Social Security, and I don't hear him saying, I'm going to pay, Ryan said, I'm going to pay that money back because I got all, or he didn't say he didn't want it then. And, you know, I have had much experience with people in my generation. He's younger than me, but quite a bit, but in my generation who benefited from student loans, through Pell Grants, who've gotten very conservative and want to cut this stuff off that enabled us to become professionals from the next generation.
Right.
You've seen that too?
Yes.
Do you have an explanation for that?
Lack of compassion. That is about the only thing. I've got mine, you're on your own.
Is Miss Susan Reeves has been on the show. She's been a very nice guest to come on at the last minute. I wish we had more time to talk and talking a little bit about the local elections and the national elections. Thank you for coming on, Miss Susan Reeves. Do you want everybody to vote Democrat? Is that what you want?
Yes.
All right.
Vote Democrat.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
But I'm still not satisfied. Given all the years, all the cries and cheers, don't amount to much more than pride. Take my love for you, take tomorrow too. There's not much left inside. How we laughed when we first knew love, singing dum-de-lum-de-lie. I taught you how to see life through love, then I taught you how to fly. Though I must have known how easily love is thrown, I took some chances.